Hello, Mech Warriors, and welcome to the Mech Bay, where we fix your mech and fix your game. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Mech Bay Podcast, your number one source for everything casual up to competitive tabletop Battletech content. I'm your host, fresh off the assembly line, Josh. And my co-host, as always, the only man I know with an extended torso twist, Dustin.
Hello, fellow Mech Warriors.
How you doing today, Dustin?
I'm in pain. I set fence posts with a buddy yesterday, so I'm recovering.
Ooh, putting those extended arms to work.
That's right. You extend the torso twist around, but I don't use those torso twist muscles frequently, so they're repairing today.
Did you at least lift properly with your gyro?
Yeah, at the knees, baby.
Lift the cool way, not the cool way.
That's right.
All right. So today we've got essentially a 30-25 faction overview for if you want to do like narrative campaigns and want to give your Op4 a little bit more flavor.
Yeah, just real brief. There's lots of Battletech fluff. There's lots of people who cover it. So we're going to kind of do a digest today. Just some quick stuff if you're new, expanding on something we said in one of our first episodes, kind of how to pick your faction, how to play them, and bonus, how to run them narratively.
All right. So first off, we've got some hobby progress and news.
Yeah, you had a big commission, right?
Yeah, I finally got that completed. Only took me, 2, maybe 3 episodes, but finished that up literally right before I moved everything. Like I literally went to my old place, threw them in an old box, and took them to where I was meeting up to deliver them.
Oh, nice. And speaking of moving, you're also very busy. You've been moving, right?
Yeah. So the Mech Bay podcast is currently relocated to the same zip code, but down the road.
Yeah, you just get a better deal?
Bigger place, more expensive, but you get more for it. I had to spend all Friday afternoon arguing with essentially Comstar on getting new HPG.
Ah, bastards. There's only one provider. No competition.
Exactly. Lost out on that Comstar fiber package, but yeah.
That's a tough life.
It's the only real downside, so I have to gripe about it.
Yep. I got some Necrons painted up, as is tradition. I did not paint any Battletech miniatures, but I also got my jab, so in a couple weeks I'll be seeing you guys on the tabletop, and I promise, once I actually start playing Battletech again, the hobby fire will be lit for Battletech.
I mean, that's essentially all we're doing. We're getting everyone ready for the golden age of Battletech tabletop.
That's right. So you got any news?
We do actually have some news. We did get our emails from Catalyst Games, and essentially we're going to expect, based on what they say, Wave 2 in May and June. What do you think about that?
I didn't commit anything to the Wave 2 stuff, so I'm waiting for all that to come to retail. I'll be happy if I get my Wave 2 mechs by Christmas. I've kind of checked out of the whole Kickstarter news cycle, so. But for those of you that, got some Wave 2 miniatures, so they're supposed to be on their way, May or June. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, I was actually looking at the Comstar Wave 2 stuff, and I realized, wow, all the mechs I want are actually garbage. But that's a whole nother topic for another episode.
Oh, boy.
I'm sorry, do I really want a Sentinel with an AC2?
Oof. The Sentinel that's a weird one. But anyways.
Happy for the redesign, just it's going to be looking better than it performs.
Yeah.
Still be happy to get it eventually. Next year. TM.
Trademark.
So, in other news, you guys actually asked, and we surprisingly listened. So, we now have a Patreon. So, we've got 3 tiers. We've got Cadet, Mech Warrior, and Commander. We've got shoutouts, and including in the show notes. And then if you go all the way up, we've got personalized commercials, which you can ask us to put either you, your mech, or whatever you want in it, and we'll make like our little fluff commercial that we enjoy doing with you as the star.
For now, we don't have a ton of benefits. It's just kind of a way, if you like our content, to just support the show. This is definitely not our day job, but if Josh can get some new hardware, all that money from the Patreon will be rolled in back into the show.
So. Yeah, I'm not trying to make money on this. I'm literally just going to try to cover the audio cost, the audio enhancing cost, and really just put everything back into giving you guys the best show that you can listen to.
And maybe a cup of coffee, but you don't drink coffee, do you?
Nah.
Okay.
H2O, baby. And mech coolant when it's, fresh off the tap.
That's right. We are also bringing a Discord. We've been asked, and so we shall provide. It's just going to be a cool little place for people who listen to the podcast to hang out and talk shop, maybe talk about the podcast a little bit. We'll probably do some interactive things. I'm running the Discord, probably do like a painting contest, maybe some scenarios. But yeah, just a place to hang out and chat.
Yeah, because we want to interact with you, and these are 2 ways that we can.
Easy peasy.
Now for some listener mail and shout-outs. So I would first like to dedicate this whole thing to Lucas Cunningham, who literally saved the last episode by letting me know at 6 a.m. that there was an audio issue that led to a desync. Like, seriously, man, you saved our bacon. Like, for someone who really prides themselves on the audio quality of this, you really caught me with my pants down, but you really saved me by letting me know. I got that fixed. 99% of the listeners never heard it, but you did, and you let me know, and I so appreciate that. So we did have a listener question from Reese. Reese writes, "Hey guys, I just listened to your episode on building a lance. I've always played Alpha Strike, so I have quite a few questions about classic Battletech. In Alpha Strike, the starting or average pilot skill is 4, and reducing a pilot skill level really drives up the point value of a unit. Does the same thing apply to classic Battletech in unit battle value? I know every pilot has 2 skill scores. How do they work? What is the normal pilot skill values? Do you guys play with improved or worsened pilots, or do you just stick with average pilots all around?" Good question, Reese, and thanks for asking. So I'm pretty sure me and Dustin normally play with 4 and 5, but we like to go either to a 3-4 for a veteran or like Lance Commander, and we actually do enjoy throwing in a 5-6 for that green recruit guy.
Yeah, every now and then to spice things up. If I'm playing a pickup game, I typically keep all of my piloting and gunnery skills the same across the lance, because if I drop somebody to 3-4, sometimes I'll just forget and I'll kind of nerf myself or not give myself the benefit of that lower gunnery and piloting. I do run 3-4 for clan and 4-5 for inner sphere. I'm pretty vanilla like that. But yes, they do increase the battle value of the unit, of the battle mechs. I think dropping from 4-5 to 3-4 is a 1.38 multiplier.
It went down actually to 1.32 this year.
Oh.
They put out that BV FAQ.
Okay.
So 3-4 is 1.32 multiplier, and a 5-6 is a 0.86 multiplier.
Nice.
Yeah. So your veterans got a little bit cheaper to take on the table.
El Duderino on Facebook asked, "So here's a question no one has been able to answer. The standard foot platoon, Flamer, lists their primary weapon as a flamer, which is problematic as both the heavy flamer and the man-portable version are support weapons. So how does this work? Is there another publication beyond the tech manual with flamers as primary weapons? You can't build this in Mega Mech Lab, but it's in the master unit list and on Mech Factory." So, Deuterino, all the Total Warfare default infantry start with auto rifles outside of the laser squad. The flamer is the support weapon for them. I checked with the damage values, and they align with what is printed in Total Warfare. The flamers are always support weapons, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, we looked deep and hard, and we could not find any case where it's a 28 flamer squad. There always has to be 20 auto rifles, as far as we can tell. If anyone can find a better answer, though, please feel free to let us know, and we'll let El Duderino know.
We're not infantry buffs, but we did do a little research for you, and that's what we could dig up.
All right, so we're going to take a quick little break, and then we're going to get into our meat of the segment, which is 3025 Faction Overview for narrative and campaign play. News around the sphere. The incredible Dr. Banzai and the Federated Sons have done the impossible, designed a brand new battle mech for the first time since the Star League. The aptly named Hatchet Man is 45 tons of mean machine, I say. Armed with an AC-10, 2 medium lasers, and its namesake, a barbaric melee device, this mech is sure to hack away at the competition. The new mech is set to roll off Lyran Commonwealth assembly lines as a show of good faith to the designers. All I know is I don't want a lance of these to ask me for my lunch sea-bills. This is Frank Verano with the SBC, bringing you news around the sphere. All right, and we're back. So I wanted to do this episode because I saw a meme on Facebook, and essentially it went down to what each faction considers long range.
Yeah, I haven't seen this meme. You'll have to describe it to me a little bit.
So the meme essentially is Liao, the LRM is a long-range weapon. Merrick, the PPC is a long-range weapon. Davian, the AC-5 is a long-range weapon. Steiner, the AC-20 is a long-range weapon. Karita, melee is a long-range weapon. And then the clans, of course. Everything is a long-range weapon. And a lot of the comments were like, this is cute, but this is really wrong on like 20 different levels.
Yeah, but it's also totally right.
It is, but it's also wrong. And I felt like there's probably a lot of people that think like the very stereotypical things about the factions and not actually how they play in lore, but also more so on the tabletop. So I wanted to do this to kind of clarify, give some people some hints of if they're running like a campaign, how to actually run a Liao or Davion or Steiner Op 4.
We're going to kind of cover each major Inner Sphere player in 3025 by who they are, what they're known for, and how they operate on the tabletop, or how you can distill that into how they play on the tabletop. We'll cover some well-known mech variants. Remember, in 3025, you can always hand wave anything as salvage, but there's definitely some iconic mechs that belong to certain factions more than others, and maybe what kind of tech they have access to.
Also, like what tactics they're known for. Why would I enjoy playing as them? Some notable color schemes and some notable units, and any hard rivals to really flesh out a game.
So real quick before we get into this, one thing that was super confusing to me when I started playing Battletech was all the names for the same thing. You have 5 major houses / nations, and you have their militaries. So oftentimes you will hear that a person reference a faction by one of 3 names. Either the nation's name, the house name. Each nation has a powerful house that effectively runs the nation. And you will hear them referred to sometimes by the name their military is referred to as. So we'll kind of cover each of those as we go into it. And those are used interchangeably by the community. So that was a little confusing for me. If you're new, maybe that'll help you out.
We rolled the dice and we gave each major house a die roll. And surprisingly, or unsurprisingly, depending on who you ask, we landed on House Steiner first.
Probably a bribe in there somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, that C-bill across my desk, it really moves that dice. House Steiner, also known as the Lyran Commonwealth.
Sometimes you'll hear the Lyran Commonwealth referred to by the name of the military, which is the Lyran Commonwealth Armed Forces, or the LCAF.
So these guys are essentially good old space Germany, because, that never turned out badly, ever. But essentially take the 80s Germany, which was starting to actually become an economic powerhouse, and kind of ramp that up to 11.
Yeah, you have to remember in 3025, that's the beginning of the game. The beginning of the game kind of took place in the mid to late 80s. So all of the politics is through the lens of like 1980s FASA America.
For the better or for worse. You're looking at it through like a time capsule.
Yeah.
They're a good old constitutional monarchy, so you've got a lot of nobles and everybody running around, almost more so than the other houses. But
yeah, there's always going to be some house politics and some noble stuff, but it gets extra special with the Lyran Commonwealth.
So on the tabletop, what are these guys going to be running most days?
You'll see the Atlas, you'll see the Commando, you'll see the Zeus. Those are some pretty iconic mechs in 3025 for the Lyran Commonwealth. The meme is the Lyran Commonwealth's, the Hausteiner Scout Lance is, Lance of Atlases, but really the Zeus is the assault mech of the Lyran Commonwealth in 3025, in my opinion.
Steiner really has the C-bills to throw around, like we mentioned, so they're not really going to have like a tech limit or anything that they're known for technology-wise. Their pilots are good, but their pilots are more not the grand schemers that we think about. They're the apply mech to problem until problem go away.
Yeah, big mechs.
If you like running big boys on the table or you want to play as a rich boy pilot, they're really going to be the faction for you. But color-wise, if you like blues and you like white and you would like a little bit of red, Steiner's really going to be your faction.
Donegal Guards is your classic. You'll see the white on half the mech vertically and the blue on the other side. I think 70% of the Steiner players I see paint their mechs as Donegal Guards. Do you know if Steiner's got any special enemies?
Well, they definitely hate Karita, and if they don't hate you, they'll try to buy you off before they'll come get you.
House Steiner's other neighbor is the Free Worlds League, and I don't know what they do, but they don't do much.
Mainly, they're kind of concerned with the Isle of Skye, so they're dealing with all that internal stuff when they're not dealing with external stuff.
Yeah, so how would you play the Lyran Commonwealth on the table, both as, running a Lyran Lance, or, maybe you're playing LCAF Op 4, opposing forces?
I would actually consider dropping the gunnery and piloting skill on some of my mechs to earn that battle value back and get more in tonnage. So that Atlas pilot, he's expensive, but you don't have to run the veteran Atlas Lance Commander. You can just say, oh, he's green. Hey, his daddy bought him an Atlas. Good for him. It's his 16th birthday.
He's a distant cousin. His auntie put in a word for him, and then all of a sudden, he's got a fresh Atlas.
But that's really fluffy to put on the table, because then your pilots are like, whoa, that's an Atlas. But it's not going to be the end-all, be-all, destroy everything within 3 to 9 hexes.
But it will make it cheaper.
Steiner is really famous for their nepotistic generals, so running an Op 4 that maybe reinforces really poorly. You engage the first wave, and the second wave looks really strong or really scary, but really they're not going to be that effective.
Yeah, House Steiner's famous for promoting people who shouldn't be promoted, giving field commands to people who shouldn't have field command.
So, Dustin, tell me about our next faction.
So, bordering House Steiner is House Kurita. Their nation is the Draconis Combine, and their military is the Draconis Combine Mustard Soldiery, or the DCMS. This is one I hear referred to as the DCMS quite frequently, which was confusing for me at first. This is essentially your Space Japan. The government is an autocracy. Some mechs you might see the DCMS running, or the Panther, the Dragon, and the Hatamoto Chi. House Kurita is pretty famous for not running medium mechs. They feel like medium mechs are an unnecessary compromise between speed and armor.
Yeah, they really will either swarm you with the light mechs, or they'll kind of bury you in the heavies that they have a lot of.
DCMS pilots are famous for, being eager to engage to get their day of honor on the battlefield. If you like fanatical devotion and personal honor, almost clan light, you'll probably like the DCMS.
They really do take that Samurai Bushido level to 11. They're really going to be lots of samurai motifs. Their lances are going to be all about trying to earn that personal honor, and they're going to be over eager to attack you. But kind of above that, it's all going to be victory above all else. So they will take a little bit of dishonor on the single person side if it wins them the battle. They're not going to be the perfect, oh no, you did something dishonorable and that guy is never coming back. Well, if he wins the fight, he regains it. So you can't kind of trick them into stuff.
So if you like the color red, you might like the Draconis Combine. The first and I think second sort of light, it's all red. You got the Atomo, the Royal Guard. You've also got my personal favorite in the Draconis Combine, the Legion of Vega. These are the outcasts and criminals, which is why I like them, because I don't really like mainstream DCMS. And you'll see they're painted gray and red. The Draconis Combine is famous also for just hating everybody in general. So how would you play the Draconis Combine if you're putting them on the table or maybe running opposing forces?
Yeah, so I really, like you said, I would emphasize not taking any medium mechs except specific Karita variants, which normally that's going to be take the jump jets off and either put a PBC or a large laser on.
Yeah, Krita mechs like to run hot with their PBCs in 2030, 25 for some reason.
I mean, they literally have that stockpile of Lord's Light PPCs.
That's right. Gotta put them on something.
So if I'm running like an Op 4, I'm going to try to engage in honor duels. Like if the opportunity presents itself, like 2 mechs on the other side of the table, I'd be like, hey, my mech challenges your mech to a one-on-one fight. But as soon as like another guy comes around the table, I'm going to like one of the Karita forces comes around the table, I'm going to ask him like, hey, well, now we're going to dog team because victory is more honorable than one-on-one honor. But they're really always going to be kind of charging into you. They're not going to give you any time to really think. The pressure is always going to be on you to react to them.
Okay, so moving on to everybody's favorite house of the Inner Sphere, we have House Davian, the Federated Suns.
So essentially, they're space America in the 80s, like the idea of the first world against the dirty communists, taken to 11, of course, but also this time with a prince and aristocracy.
Their military is referred to as the Armed Forces of the Federated Suns, or the AFFS. What kind of mechs will you see the AFFS fielding?
So like we talked about in our Lance review with Kurt, they're going to be running a lot of autocannon mechs, but also some large lasers. They're going to be running enforcers, Jaeger mechs, dervishes. They like ammunition. Like they have a lot of it laying around and they're not afraid to use it.
Daka.
Some tactics that they're going to be using on the table is a lot of gun lines for the defending part, but also they're really known for their cavalry. So they're faster jump mechs that can really take the beating, get in there, kind of punch you in the face and keep running. So that's really their offensive side.
Yeah, so why would you like to play House Davian?
The meme, of course, is you like plot armor and you like to win. But no, really, you really like having that kind of dedicated second line that just kind of sits back and rains rounds, lasers, or missiles downrange while having like 1 or 2 big heroes in the battlefield, kind of midfield. And they're kind of the ones doing all the cool stuff. They're the ones shooting the autocannon 20s or kicking guys, or my personal favorite, ripping catapult legs off and swinging them around. So paint-wise and paint schemes, what kind of colors are you mainly going to see Davian use?
So do you like blue with a little streak of red and white, or perhaps even green? Then House Davian is for you. So some units you'll see, some more infamous units, is the Crucius Lancers, the Brigade of Guards, and Somerset Academy. The standard is green, but they like to throw in royal red. You've got your whites for parade colors as well. You want to play the Federated Suns if you hate Liao and Kurita. They've got big beef with their neighbors. Josh, how would you play them on the tabletop?
So I would really emphasize that 2 lines on the table. I'd like wait for an opening that you make with the autocannons and the long range, and then I'd have those like hero plot armored mechs run through and kind of steal the show essentially. You've got a dedicated back line, you have a dedicated front line. There's no, oh, this is a bracket build or anything. Some like fun things that you can do is like raiding New Avalon Institute of Science. Like they've got a lot of technology that they like to hide behind their borders. So when you're playing a game, you can actually play like, hey, find the new Lost Tech, find the brand new prototype double heat sinks that House Davian has. So they're going to have like fun new tech that you can play around with, but also steal for like a fun mission. All right, so moving more counterclockwise, we've got House Liao, also known as the Compelling Confederation.
And the Compelling Confederation Armed Forces, another armed forces.
That's the CCAF. Really, they are America's fear of the 80s that China and Russia would merge and become a superpower and take over space.
Yeah, lots of assassins. I wonder why.
All right, so how does their government work, Dustin?
House Liao is just a straight-up dictatorship. As a person born in compelling Confederation space, you aren't even a citizen. You have to earn your citizenship by working for the nation.
They're a product of their time, and that's really as much as you can say.
So what kind of mechs can you expect to see the CCAF fielding?
They're a little bit more lightly tonned, but they do have a lot of catapults. What few are left? Cicadas and Vindicators.
I love those Vindicators.
Yeah, oh yeah. I'm going to jump the timeline just like a year or two, but in a few years, they'll have the Cataphract and the Raven, which are kind of like groundbreaking, actually.
So House Liao's kind of poor, and they're kind of getting their butts kicked by their neighbors. They got to make the most of their civils. So you'll see like unconventional tactics, minefields, artillery, subterfuge, sabotage, ambushes. What other kind of tactics do you think you could see from the CCAF?
Yeah, so they're really going to not try to do a direct fight with you. They're really going to try to sit back, whittle you down, damage you first, and then come in for the killing blow. And when they do, they're going to devote as many forces as they can to that blow.
It's like a war of attrition followed up with the Chancellor's death strike.
Expect a lot of hidden units and a lot of long-range fire support. What kind of color schemes are we talking about with Liao?
You're going to see some blacks, a lot of green, and some tans. I personally run the green boys, and I run the tan boys, kind of a desert camouflage.
Some notable units of theirs are the Big Mac, got the Death's Commandos, and the Tau Ceti Lancers.
Really? The Big Mac? What's that?
Big McHarren.
Oh.
Yeah, so they're like a mercenary company that goes full house unit.
The biggest thing to remember when playing House Liao in 3025 is that you hate House Davian the mostest. Josh, how would you play House Liao on the tabletop? Either running them yourself or maybe running them as a game master.
Yeah, so I definitely emphasize stealthy hidden units. I would try not to reveal my whole hand until I have to. And when I do, I'm going to put it to full effect. I would definitely emphasize combined arms for them just because they do have less actual mechs in their deck to use. So don't be afraid to throw out artillery or minefields. They're almost like the ultimate dungeon crawl.
Battletech on a budget.
Yeah, you almost need that wisdom save, checking for traps, checking around every corner, looking to see what's in the chest before you open it.
They would be great to play if you like playing the underdog in 3025. They kind of get their just desserts later on, but...
All right, next up, we have Dustin's favorite, which I will let him introduce.
Yeah, so we have House Merrick, the Free Worlds League. And you'll hear their military referred to as the Free Worlds League Military, or the FWLM.
Isn't it militia?
It is also the militia, which, the Free Worlds League is famous for their militia. So House Merrick is space everyone else.
I've heard them referred to as like Space Balkans or Space Mediterranean. Like they're the EU, but not with Germany, essentially.
Yeah, their government is technically a parliamentary confederacy. It's run by, House Merrick and the Captain General. It's kind of a fractured collection of federalist planets. The Free Worlds League's weakness is its parliamentary confederacy government. They're kind of deadlocked in political nonsense. The Free Worlds League has a hard time keeping itself together. What kind of mechs would you expect to see the Free Worlds League fielding?
So I definitely see like a Trebuchet or a Hermes 1 or even a Hermes 2 and an Awesome. So they almost kind of got the last pick of the litter, in my opinion, for mechs. But what they do have, they do maintain and do have good stockpiles of. There is like a shortage of PBCs because, in my opinion, they just reserve them all for the few Awesomes they have.
Yeah, so you'll see large lasers.
So tactics-wise, the Free World League is really going to try to use their maneuverability, keep kind of poking at the enemy. Like they're not going to try to play in a stand-up fight. They're always going to kind of be trying to move around. They're always going to be trying to play to their range of their long-range weapons. Like I said, that Awesome or the Trebuchet, while having a few skirmishers in the short-range midfield trying to get daggers into your armor. They don't want to engage you in a stand-up fight, so they're never going to try to play to that. If you kind of corner them, they really do fall apart. What kind of colors do they normally run, Dustin?
With the Free Worlds League, the Free Worlds League militia is really popular. They're mostly purple. You'll also see like Free Worlds Guards, which is white with a splash of purple. I feel like if you like the color purple, you might want to paint up some Free Worlds League mechs.
So, Dustin, when you're playing Merrick on the tabletop, how do you like to play them?
I like to play them whichever way I want. I feel like there is a lot of, because of all of the states in the Free World League and all the different units, there's a diversity, or at least there's a flexibility to play them almost whichever way you like. You can just splash in some Free Worlds League mechs and kind of play to whatever tactics you feel on that day. As a game master, the Free Worlds League plays great as the faceless antagonist. In fact, there's plenty of fiction where the Free Worlds League is just kind of the generic bad guy, like in the Grey Death Legion trilogy.
Oh, that sounds good. So really, out of those 5 houses, you could really do your op for any enemy force any way you really wanted to. Like you could take any tactic or anything and build like an entire campaign around that.
Another great thing about playing any of the 5 houses is if you want to do a little research, they all have authentic worldviews and reasons to be going to battle. So you're just a tiny bit of reading and you can bring a real narrative to your narrative campaign.
So we do have a few honorable mentions in 3025 besides the houses. So we'll start with the mercenaries of the Inner Sphere.
The least of which, the mercenaries.
So probably the most well-known mercenaries out there right now would be the Wolf's Dragoons. So, Dustin, what are they known for?
I mean, the Wolf's Dragoons are famous for fighting for every Inner Sphere house honorably. And they're famous for being secretly scouts for Clan Wolf.
What? And spoilers, man. Spoilers.
Spoilers? Oh, so we don't want to cover that part? Well, then that's all I got. They honorably fight for all 5 of the great houses, contractually.
So if you want to throw in any like rare tech, they're a good place to put that in.
Yeah, the Wolf's Dragoons is famous for showing up with a bunch of mech designs that hadn't been seen in the Inner Sphere for quite a while. Like the Annihilator, or, a company of spiders, which is unheard of. I wonder why.
But tactics-wise, if you're throwing in somebody like the Wolves Dragoons, they're really going to play to that. They're always going to have a surprise under the table that you can like throw out, like, oh my gosh, they dropped an Annihilator, and the whole point of the game is just to get away from it.
What are a couple other notable mercenary units?
So another big one is like the Eridani Light Horse, which is really just the descendants of the Star League Defense Force before they left to clan space.
They've got Thunderbolts.
Yeah, so they even have like a custom Thunderbolt with the jump jets, and it's probably one of the most optimized heavy mechs for its age.
Sounds like a sweet ride.
So they're more of your like standard Inner Sphere mercenary, where they're just doing it for the civils, but they've got enough resources that they can bring some big guns to bear.
What kind of tactics could you see on the field there with the Eridani Light Horse?
Definitely some hit and run tactics. Like they're going to drop their heavy, mobile, agile mechs down, jump over the hill, kind of shoot you up, grab the objective, and keep moving. So they're the unexpected, but really going to charge through your lines. You just have to hold on and brace. So those are some of your mercenaries, the faction that's always going to be fighting for your C-bills. On the other side of that coin, there's another faction that's going to fight for your C-bills. Dustin, why don't you tell me about the pirates?
Pirates are anything you want them to be, but mostly they're after your booty. They exist on the fringes of the Inner Sphere. On the periphery, you can expect hit and run tactics, smashes, and grabs. They're trying to exist like the parasite they are off of your forces and your stolen goods.
Yeah, so when I was first getting into the game, I actually wanted to do more of a pirate force just because I could hand wave and fluff that they had stolen any mech that I wanted to play with. So they're like a good starting point for that.
And you can paint pirate forces whichever way you want. You could even paint all your mechs differently because that's, narratively speaking, exactly how a bunch of pirates would roll.
And tactics-wise, they're going to really just be focused on the objective. Grab something, kill something, do something, and then get out. Like, they're not trying to win honor or get more salvage. They're just going to be there for that specific objective, and they're either going to die and your players get the loot or salvage or XP, or they win and bad things happen.
Yeah, pirates have a checkbook to balance. They're trying to get more than they give.
And then we'll do our last special mention. We'll give
Josh's personal favorites.
So we'll give Comstar. So even though the Com Guards didn't come out until 3029, they still are a good faction to kind of build towards in 3025.
You've got a secretive religious arm of Comstar, the worshippers of Blake, Jerome Blake. Comstar secretly has all kinds of sweet, swanky technology. Comstar could be a great way as an opposing force to introduce some shiny new toys into your game if you're, running a campaign for some players.
Yeah, so if you want to introduce like Lost Tech or a brine cache of good loot, like, hey, there's a Comstar quote-unquote force protecting it, or you have to beat Comstar to the treasure, and it's almost like a race campaign. They are a kind of a faceless, but they have a distinct purpose on the battlefield when you're playing a game.
And if you want to do the old switcheroo on your players, if they happen upon some Lost Tech, lore-wise, Comstar has every reason to show up for no good reason and just totally obliterate your players' forces, take what they aren't supposed to have, and disappear.
Yeah, so tactics-wise, they're going to be almost like pirates, but doubly focused. They're there to make sure you don't get your hands on that treasure. They want it themselves, but they're religiously devout in you not getting it. So that pretty much wraps it up for our 3025 major and minor players and how to run them on the tabletop for your campaigns and games.
Yeah, if you want to double check any of these unit color schemes for their parade colors, I can't stress enough, check out Camo Specs online, check out the unit color compendium. You'll find many resources on how to paint your little mech boys. If you liked what you heard or have a request for next episode, hit us up on Facebook at the Mech Bay Podcast or at the mechbaypodcast@gmail.com, and also on Patreon at the Mech Bay Podcast.